A week after Operation Sindoor, when the Indian Air Force conducted long-range offensive airstrikes on military targets inside Pakistan, one of the first voices to offer a full endorsement as far as the success of these strikes was military historian and air power expert Tom Cooper. He's from Austria, and a blog post written by him has gone incredibly viral here in India for understandable reasons, but also all over the world. And we're very happy and privileged that Tom has given us some of his time to discuss some of his findings in that blog post, which we're very interested in hearing about. Tom, welcome. Thank you for giving us your time here on NDTV. Your blog post, like I said, is something that a lot of people in their millions have read here in India. I have a feeling that given the experience in 2019 when many of the successes were up for dispute, reading a full validation by you where you've called it a clear-cut success, a clear-cut victory for India. Can you start, Tom, by telling us why you think so?
Thank you very much for invitation, and very nice to be with you here. Why this clear-cut victory? When you follow the evidence that is available, and there is evidence, of course, it takes a lot of time to sift through it and to find out what is true, what is not true, and one is making mistakes in the process as well, no doubt about this.
Yeah.
But overall, when you have you follow the entire developments, the grand picture, you have the situation where India started with an airstrike on 9 terror camps, which is the crucial point about this entire situation. India didn't want to do anything more. India wanted to hit these 9 terror camps. India knew they are related to the Pakistani government, to the Pakistani armed forces, but it limited its operation to striking 9 terror camps. And had Pakistan been sane enough to to accept this fact and go over it, the entire situation would have ended at that point. Excuse me. However, what happened next? Pakistan attempted to retaliate. It launched a massive missile and UAV strike. What happened with this strike? It was obvious that it is unsuccessful. Yeah. There were hundreds of intercepts of Pakistani missiles, of Pakistani UAVs, and no serious damage was caused to India. Why was this obvious? Because there was no evidence in confirmation of Pakistani strikes causing some kind of evidence, some kind of damage to India. What happened as next? On the contrary, India hit back and started knocking out Pakistani air defense systems. What happened in that case? There was evidence that Pakistani air defense systems were hit, and not only a few of them, but in Gujarat, in Lahore, in Karachi. So 3 major centers, 3 major air defense systems hit. What degree of damage unknown, but obviously enough for Pakistan to then attempt retaliating with its air force the next day. What was the result of that airstrike remains unclear, but obviously no serious damage was caused to India again. On the contrary, Indian air defenses remained active, vivid, shooting down additional UAVs, shooting down additional missiles, claiming to have shot down additional Pakistani aircraft. Evidence might be, forthcoming or not, we are going to see. But the point is, Pakistani second attempt to retaliate was unsuccessful. And then you have, all of a sudden, India striking Pakistani air bases, and there is clear evidence that it was striking also nuclear weapons facilities, storage facilities. And when somebody is striking nuclear weapon storage facilities, this is there is nothing more serious in warfare than such operation. And knowing how conservative, how reluctant, how cautious Indian top generals in particular, they do not take such decisions easily. Which means by that point in time, they were already certain enough to have damaged Pakistani capability to defend itself so much, degraded it to such a degree that they could dare, so to say, striking nuclear weapon storage facilities. Now, by all respect, whatever the politicians say, whatever this prime minister says, or that prime minister says, whatever whoever else says, at that point in time, it is a clear-cut victory because India is free to strike nuclear weapon storage facilities, and Pakistan is hitting back, but it's not effective. Which means Pakistan has no means left to hit back on India, not even with nuclear weapons. And with this, I said, clear-cut victory,
Tom,
game over.
I did want to dig a little deeper into that last bit for just a minute. Apologies for interrupting you, but I just wanted to get under the layers of that answer because the Indian Air Force, on the record in their press conference had said that, there was no targeting of nuclear facilities. But let's move beyond that point to what you were talking about in terms of the actual strikes themselves. Why do you think these strikes were successful? And specifically, Tom, what did you think of the battle damage imagery that the Indian Armed Forces have put out? The reason I ask this is because only a few years ago during Balakot, India found itself in a mess of, claims and counterclaims. This time it seems to be more decisive, and your word on it, believe me, counts for a lot.
I don't know how much is my word counting or not. There are also people who do not like me in India.
Believe me.
But the point is this: after the Balakot strike, the evidence provided by India was not conclusive, not enabling definite confirmation or negation of the damage caused. And in this case, it was, right from the start, I could follow in Pakistani social media that out of 9 terror camps attacked by India, Pakistani social media was confirming multiple hits on at least 6 of them. I mean, this is, not 100% success, but 70 or 60% success, definite success. And I mean, if you have 2 hits on a madrasa here and 5 hits on a madrasa there, and this is confirmed by the locals, there is no different locals, not by just 1 or 2 or 5 the locals, but several of them. It is obvious that something was hit and severely at that. So, conclusion: the strike was largely successful. What I didn't like at that point in time was that India fell again for its usual behavior, pattern of behavior, which is, dear Pakistanis, excuse us, we are hitting a little bit terror camps in your country, but we are not shooting at your armed forces. Everybody in our branch, in this military security analysis, knows that Pakistan is harboring, not only harboring, it is organizing, indoctrinating, financing, training, equipping, and commanding jihadist terror organizations, and not only 2 or 3, but several of them for 60 years already. Sending them, they are running outright jihad import-export business over there. So when you hit these jihadist training camps in Pakistan, you are hitting the Pakistani armed forces as well. Therefore, this is why I didn't like and what I criticized in my earlier post as well. Expecting the Pakistanis are going to stop and say, oh gosh, this was very impressive what India did. You're not going to shoot back over the border. This is naive and leading nowhere. Therefore, I was kind of relieved when I saw on 8th of May that Indian Air Force and actually ground forces have started to target Pakistani air defense systems, because that meant, now New Delhi really means business. And it's not going to stop at that.
No, you and I share that view, Tom. I completely share that assessment of yours, which is, that India, I think, has drawn a red line now. It no longer distinguishes between, terror camps and the military. The Prime Minister also said that today. My third question to you now is, right, absolutely. And my third question to you, Tom, is that with all this, very, very clear battle damage imagery, we've seen the satellite images, someone as respected as you, and the reason why you're respected, Tom, even though many people may not like you here in India, is because you're fair. You're not on anyone's side. You have criticized India during the Balakot time. This time you've called it a clear-cut victory. So you're someone who, one can trust, because you're clearly not partisan in this case. So my question to you then is, a lot of Indians will be wondering, and are wondering, and I myself have wondered about the narrative in the Western media, with so much clear-cut data, imagery, the word of people like yourself, there still seems to be a slant in the Western press, which you have
Yes,
called
there is.
PR efforts. Can you tell us what you mean by that, and why is it so? Why is it so difficult, for India's word to carry in the Western press?
The Western press in particular, and the Western public additionally, have I always say, a memory of the fish. They remember the last 5 minutes, and then perhaps 1 or 3 points from the last 40 or 50 years. And one of these points is, back then, the glorious days of the Reagan administration, Pakistani F-16s were shooting down. They weren't, but that's what the Americans recall, is that they were shooting down Soviet MiG-23s over Afghanistan, and Pakistan was helping, arrange the payback for Vietnam in Afghanistan, and so on and so on. And this is what they are recalling. When you talk with Americans, on average, nowadays they do not even recall that Osama bin Laden was found and killed inside Pakistan, where he was hiding for years. Even less so, when you talk, even less so, it's actually so. When you talk with US Army officers that used to serve in Afghanistan of 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, that were fighting Al-Qaeda along the border to Pakistan, they are going to tell you Pakistani army was sitting up there on the hill in its positions and drinking chai by watching the Al-Qaeda run around them, cross the border and hide inside Pakistan, and the US army couldn't follow them, of course. So why is this not penetrating the wider public? I don't know. I'm not the wider public. What I know is that this is not unknown, and there is always this, for example, after Balakot, there was this, no way, this Indian trash, which means Russian and French-made aircraft of Indian Air Force, could shut down our holy F-16s. That was the summary of the reaction, particularly from the United States. Indians claiming here widely how they have shot down our F-16, which is not true. Although there was clear evidence. I mean, MiG-21 has just, at least Wing Commander Abhihandan's MiG-21 has just one seat, but there were two parachutes clearly to be seen in the sky, and the Pakistani civilians on the site are talking about two people coming down on the parachutes, and one of them badly injured. So, and this second pilot never emerged, at least not out of the cloak of the ISIS. So, the West is always taking sides. It's always considering this as sort of a football match, so to say, at least the public. You have also, there are enough well-informed people who understand what is actually going on, who are even mad about this false narrative spread by the media, but they do not have the influence, contacts, and so on in order to change it. It is exactly like what Israel is doing in Palestine. There is a genocide going on, and governments are simply ignoring it and supporting it, actually, but the media is still reporting in favor of Israel. So how do you change that? I don't know how.
It's something for India to definitely think about, and I'm sure as far as narrative and the Western press is concerned, it's something that the system will be thinking about, especially since this time things have been significantly different from Balakot. My fourth question to you, Tom, is when those missiles were hitting their targets in Pakistan, a lot of people want to understand it because, for those who are, consuming this story from a distance or through the media, all of it seems like a video game. But from an air power perspective, can you explain to us how effective these strikes were, the Indian strikes were on those military bases, and why is it that Pakistan was unable to mount a retaliation using its air force as a result of these strikes?
This is an excellent question, even more so because we all know, you and me, and probably, the Indian military top, Indian intelligence, and people worldwide who are busying themselves with military affairs knew the Pakistani integrated air defense system was a very powerful system. They have only recently received additional very advanced radars from the United States. They have got such advanced air defense missiles like HQ-9 and HQ-16 from China and so on. So how it was clear that something is happening. When you see that things are blowing up, and there are several videos showing this HQ-9 system in Lahore, in Walton, in suburb of Lahore, it's hit. You see the harop coming down from the skies and hitting something, and there is an oily explosion.
Yeah.
That is one evidence. Then there is another video showing something similar from some other, I think it is from Gujarat, showing a similar scene. You see that something is happening. And then you see the Pakistani missiles and UAVs coming in huge waves and shot down by dozens. Okay, some have gone through the Indian air defenses. There is no dispute about this. No, there is no wonder weapon solving all the problems and defeating everything coming its way. So also not the Indian air defense system.
Yeah.
But Pakistani air defense system was taken by surprise and badly damaged. So much is clear. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Indian Air Force to strike air bases as heavily as it has hit them, at least on the 9th of May, if not earlier. You could see, I mean, we are talking here not about complete destruction of entire bases. To destroy a single air bases are very heavily fortified. They are very big facilities. They're stretching for 2 or 3 kilometers. You do not destroy this with 2 or 3 hits. You need 50, 60, 90, 100 hits on such a base to completely demolish it. But when you see single missiles coming in and striking, for example, a selected major hangar, maintenance hangar, or control tower or underground facilities, then it's clear that the air defense is not working. And that was the case with the Pakistani air defenses. So what is then the logical conclusion is Indians have attacked. You know that earlier Indians have attacked this air defense system. Day later it's not working. That means that this air defense system is not destroyed, but not neutralized, but suppressed enough for the Indian Air Force to strike its targets, and that at will by the morning of 10th of May. And then it is not surprised to hear that at 9 o'clock in the morning, the Director General of Military Operations from Islamabad called New Delhi on the hotline and said, okay, let's sound it a ceasefire. So this is, serious logical conclusions on the basis of available evidence. It is a process which is taking, several hours a day to sift through all of this, through all the reporting, social media, mainstream media, contacts. What do they say? What have they heard? What kind of videos are they publishing, and so on? But eventually, you're doing this carefully enough, at least a big picture is coming into being. And the big picture is, by 10th of May, the Indian Air Force was definitely in position to strike whatever targets in Pakistan it wanted to strike. Whether it is or not, we don't know. We are going to find out. But it was striking precisely. It was hitting, the major base of Pakistani AWACS. It was hitting one of the F-16, or actually 2 of F-16 bases, one of G-10 bases, JF-17 bases, and so on and so on. So that means it could hit what it wanted. And rather than the politicians or air marshals or whoever else are explaining, no, we didn't know there is a nuclear weapon storage facility over there. Excuse me, that is irrelevant. Because if I know that there was a nuclear weapon storage facility, then I expect Honorable Air Marshal to know it as well. And therefore, I dubbed that he is so irresponsible, like shooting missiles in all the possible directions. And then all of us, sudden and by pure accidents, 2 of them hit exactly the entrance into this underground facility. What an accident. This would be, like lottery. And Indian armed forces are not commanded by people who are gambling. They're commanded by people who are overcautious, who are indoctrinated to be overcautious, who are experts in being solidly conservative in their approach to how are they conducting military operations. So therefore, sorry, by all respect for Air Marshal and his statements, he knew what was there and he targeted precisely, or at least his airmen targeted very precisely.
No, I agree with you about the wordplay and the things that are left unsaid in these conversations. Let's, I think, acknowledge that we still are in either a full fog of war situation or a semi fog of war. This is still playing out. The operations in some way or the other are still continuing. My final question to you, Tom, is the word deterrence is used very often when it comes to India and Pakistan. And deterrence, is the overall intention of these operations. India says, this should make sure that something like Pahalgam never happens again and no provocations should ever happen again from Pakistan's side. Do you believe what the Indian Air Force achieved by striking those bases has sent out a deterrent message to the Pakistan military?
Well, I'm not in the boots of Pakistani generals, and even less so in the sandals of their political masters. But the point is this: their deterrence didn't work. They were threatening to, strike wherever and whatever in India they want to strike, in the case India hits back up on them. And they have ordered this terror attack in April on account of being sure that India isn't going to dare challenging them. What happened? India not only dared striking terror targets, but in retaliation for Pakistani retaliation, dared hitting their air defense systems and neutralizing better part of that air defense system. Moreover, when they attempted to retaliate again, their own retaliation was ineffective. Their own missile and UAV strikes were ineffective. I do not say they were 100% ineffective. On the contrary, they're probably 10 or 15% effective, but the mass of them was ineffective. With this, the Pakistani deterrence collapsed like a house of cards. There was none of it left. And when then the Indian Air Force, probably on 9th of May, managed to push the Pakistani Air Force away from the international border, it means it has gained itself, or enabled itself to operate closer to the border, to launch even more airstrikes into Pakistan, and started hitting, which resulted in this operation to hit Pakistani air bases. Then there was absolutely nothing left of Pakistani deterrence, to a degree where these overcautious Indian generals, whether they admit it or not, have found themselves in a situation to start ordering strikes on not only one, but at least two known nuclear weapon storage facilities. So again, nobody gambles with such facilities. Nobody is playing with this. This is no accident, and this is no we didn't know. Fact is, you don't touch such facilities except you're absolutely sure the enemy cannot hit back. The enemy cannot pull out his nukes out of that underground facility, put them on some aircraft or on a missile, and shoot them in direction of India. Nobody is so crazy as to do that, especially not Indian generals. So therefore, they were in a possession of total superiority in grand picture. Perhaps tactically in different sectors they haven't had a superiority or absolute certainty that they are going to be successful and suffer no losses, and Pakistan cannot hit them. But the matter of fact is, in grand total, they have concluded Pakistan cannot hit back on India. And that's why this decision to strike such facilities. And eventually, promptly after that, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I said, Director General of Military Operations in Pakistan is on the phone, calling New Delhi. Well, how about we make a ceasefire because it's not working? This is also an act. Pakistan is not doing such things. I mean, talk with Pakistanis, whoever, talk with their retired military personnel, talk with their active military personnel, talk with average Pakistanis. Nobody there has anything that they do not know the word capitulation. They don't, so much so they wouldn't, until today, they wouldn't admit what happened in 1971, for example, or in 1999 in Kargil.
That is true.
There is absolutely, they do not have the concept of military defeat. They only know Pakistani Air Force is the best on the world and it's going to defeat India with ease and so on and so on. And now all of a sudden, well, we have seen something different.
Well, if that is the template that Pakistan has always lived on. Well, boy, have things changed in the last few days. And Tom, I thank you for sharing your wisdom, your observations, your commentary with us. It is valuable, and the reason why it means a lot to us to get a voice like yours is because it's independent. And in a time of a fog of war, I think there are lots of partisan voices. Like you said, there are PR efforts, etc. But for someone who has criticized India in the past to now offer something that seems like a validation, which is rare, that's the reason why it is something that we will hold on to and respect, and I'm sure all Indians will as well. Tom Cooper, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to us on NDTV.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and really big pleasure to be with you today.
आपने पाकिस्तानी फौज को भी बता दिया है, पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई ठिकाना नहीं है जहां बैठकर आतंकवादी चैन की सांस ले सके। हम घर में घुसकर मारेंगे और बचने का एक मौका तक नहीं देंगे। और हमारे ड्रोन्स, हमारी मिसाइलें, उनके बारे में तो सोचकर पाकिस्तान को कई दिन तक नींद नहीं आएगी।